they said. Forgive and forget, as if pain was a switch. As if betrayal could be buried beneath polite smiles and Sunday sermons. But what if forgiveness isn't always freedom? What if, in some cases, it's a leash? See, there's a kind of forgiveness that isn't about healing, it's about control. It's the kind that silences your story before it's been fully told, that pushes you to move on before you've even had the chance to grieve. It's not real closure, it's a muzzle, a pacifier to make everyone else more comfortable. This is what I call fake forgiveness, and it's more common than you think. Fake forgiveness often starts with pressure. Family members who tell you to let it go. Religious leaders who shame you for feeling angry. Partners who say you're too sensitive or you're still holding on to that. It creates an emotional trap. If you don't forgive, you're the problem. If you do forgive but still hurt, you're being dramatic. The system is rigged. But the deeper issue is that fake forgiveness, IS&T, about you at S, about maintaining power structures. Let's say someone deeply hurt you. They lied, betrayed, humiliated, or abandoned you at your most vulnerable. Now imagine them never apologizing. Not truly, or worse, imagine they give a half-hearted sorry if you felt that way, just to clear their conscience. And then you're told, by them or by others, to forgive. What's really happening here? They're not seeking forgiveness. They're seeking a reset button. A way to erase what happened without having to confront it. Without having to look at what they did. And in doing so, they keep the narrative in their hands. Because when you forgive too early, before truth has been acknowledged, before accountability has been met to, don't actually heal. You adapt. You shrink around the pain. You tuck it away so others don't have to see it. But it doesn't disappear. It just changes form. It becomes silence, or people-pleasing, or that gnawing sense that something still isn't right. And that's where the trap is. You think you've forgiven, but you're still stuck. Still spinning the story in your head. Still trying to make sense of it. Because the wound never got to breathe. It never got to speak. Real forgiveness requires truth. It requires emotional justice. Not revenge, but recognition. The moment someone says, I see what I did to you, I won't minimize it. I take full responsibility. Something shifts. The wound exhales. You don't have to carry it anymore, because someone finally helped you put it down. But fake forgiveness denies you that moment. It asks you to carry the weight and pretend it's not heavy. Why does this happen? Because many people are more comfortable with appearances than accountability. They want harmony on the surface. They don't want to see pain, especially if they caused it. So they weaponize forgiveness to sweep it under the rug. If you really healed, you'd be over this. You're holding on to negativity. You need to be the bigger person. It sounds virtuous, but underneath, it's emotional gaslighting. It tells the victim that their pain is an inconvenience. That peace matters more than truth. And here's the danger. When you internalize that, you start to betray yourself. You start apologizing for your emotions. You downplay your hurt. You tell yourself, maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe you're being too much. You try to be understanding, compassionate, spiritual. But deep down, you're screaming for someone to just say, yes, that happened. And it was wrong. Fake forgiveness turns you into your own silencer. And some people benefit from that. Because as long as you're trying to be good and mature, you're not demanding change. You're not holding anyone accountable. You're just swallowing poison and calling it peace. Even worse, some manipulators count on that. They'll hurt you, then rush you to forgive them. Not out of remorse, but to reset the dynamic. They know that if they get you to say it's okay, they can keep the upper hand. The cycle continues. You stay trapped, emotionally obedient, spiritually confused. And that's the real cost of fake forgiveness. Not just unhealed wounds, but lost clarity, lost power. You begin to forget what's real. You confuse suppression with strength, submission with serenity. You start calling trauma growth, but there is no growth without truth. So how do you break out? You give yourself permission to pause, to not forgive on command, to sit with the mess, the anger, the sorrow, to name what happened without softening it. And if anyone tries to rush your healing, you hold your ground, because your story isn't on their timeline. You stop performing closure. Sometimes healing begins with saying, I'm not ready. I need the truth first. I need them to own it. I need to feel safe before I open that door again. And sometimes real forgiveness comes years later, or not at all. That's okay too. Forgiveness isn't a moral badge. It's a process, a deeply personal one. You don't owe it to anyone who hasn't done the work to deserve it. You owe yourself honesty, because you can't truly let go of what you were never allowed to hold. So the next time someone tells you to just forgive and move on, ask yourself, whose comfort are they protecting? Theirs or yours? And whose truth is being buried? You're allowed to stop pretending it didn't hurt. You're allowed to want more than silence dressed up as healing. You're allowed to want justice not as vengeance, but as validation. That's not being bitter. That's being awake. And once you see fake forgiveness for what it is, not healing. But erasure will never again apologize for demanding truth before peace, because real peace doesn't come from pretending. It comes from finally being heard. You thought forgiving them would set you free. You were told that holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting them to suffer, so you let it go. Or at least, you said you did. You spoke the words, I forgive you, even when your stomach turned. Even when your body remembered things your mind tried to forget. You forgave because healing was supposed to start there. But something still felt wrong. You smiled for peace. You bit your tongue for closure. You chose silence, thinking it was maturity. But beneath the stillness, something inside you kept screaming. That scream? That scream is your truth. And fake forgiveness is how the world tells you to shut it down. The problem isn't that you're incapable of healing. It's that you were pressured to heal on a timeline that had nothing to do with your readiness. You were told forgiveness was a virtue, when in reality, it was a leash. A leash that kept you from expressing the depth of your pain. A leash that made you second-guess your right to be angry. A leash that disguised obedience as enlightenment. Because the moment you say I forgive you, society expects your pain to disappear. The abuser wants the slate wiped clean. Your circle wants the drama over, and you're left alone with the wreckage. They'll call you bitter if you bring it up again. Dramatic, petty, stuck in the past, all because your forgiveness was never meant to liberate you, it was meant to silence you. And this is where the trap deepens. When forgiveness is weaponized, it becomes a tool of control. Not just by the person who hurt you, but by the culture that raised you. The one that teaches you to always take the high road. Even if that road buries your story under its pavement. You're not bitter because you haven't forgiven. You're bitter because you were forced to pretend you had. You're not struggling because you're stuck. You're struggling because you were never given space to grieve. You were pushed past your own emotions, told to perform peace before you even had a chance to feel anger. That's not healing. That's spiritual bypassing. Real forgiveness doesn't begin with saying the words, it begins with telling the truth, unfiltered, unapproved, and often ugly. It begins with acknowledging how deeply you were wounded and letting yourself sit in that awareness without shame. But most people never get that chance. Because there's a narrative that says healing has to be graceful, that anger is beneath you, that the bigger person doesn't lash out, doesn't cry in public, doesn't hold grudges. But that bigger person often becomes a smaller version of themselves, numb, censored, shrinking to maintain the illusion of growth. You deserve more than that. You deserve to say, "I'm not ready." You deserve to cry without guilt, to rage without apology, to mourn what happened to you without being told you're making it worse. Forgiveness, when real, is sacred. But when it's forced, it's a mask. A mask that says, "I'm fine," when you're breaking. A mask that makes the abuser feel safe while the victim stays trapped. A mask that keeps the peace, but only for everyone else. And the tragedy is, many victims begin to feel guilty for still feeling hurt, as if pain has an expiration date, as if their suffering is an inconvenience. They learn to comfort their abuser, to defend the person who damaged them, to absorb the discomfort of others just so no one has to sit in the mess. But the mess is where the healing is. Not in premature forgiveness, not in fake smiles, not in spiritual slogans that bypass reality. The mess is where the truth lives, and you can't reach real peace by skipping over truth. You're still trapped because they taught you to forgive before you were ready. Because you mistook survival for healing. Because you thought you had to let it go to be lovable. But your pain is not the enemy. Your anger is not unholy. They are the witnesses to what happened. The proof that your experience mattered. The voice that says, "I'm not okay." And that's okay. You don't owe anyone the performance of forgiveness. You owe yourself the honesty of where you are. If you're still hurting, say so. If you're still angry, honor it. If you're not ready to forgive, don't. Healing isn't linear. Forgiveness isn't a race. And peace isn't something you achieve by pretending you're already there. You don't have to forgive to be free. You have to feel to be free. And once you give yourself that permission, the trap breaks.